Welcome to TechNOW. I'm your host, John Reed, also CEO of Canada Alliance. And we're very pleased to have here today a world-acclaimed author, commentator on TV and other media, Simon Sinek, who's going to talk to us about leadership. And to actually conduct the interview today, I brought in a guest moderator, Hart Hillman, who's a member of the Canada National Leadership Council, and also the CEO of the Big Win Group. So I've got two experts on the line. Hart, why don't I have you turn it over to you and take us through some of the Q&A.
Thanks, John. Simon, welcome. I have to start by making a confession. I'm a huge fan of yours, and as we founded Big Win Group about 5 months ago, certainly what was ringing in our ears was understanding the why. The how and the what, as you can imagine, were pretty straightforward after being in the business for 15 years, but we were tasked with and gave pause with the why. And what I'd love to talk to you about, and what a lot of CEOs are grappling with that we're working with, are around the areas of transformation and innovation. And I'd like to tie those together with not only start with why, but also your new book, which, if you don't mind me putting in a laudatory comment, it's a phenomenal book. Leaders Eat Last. I think it's a great continuation of the theme of leadership with humility, if you will. Yes. So maybe we could start with, Simon, if you were to talk about some of the biggest challenges you've seen organizations fight through and deal with as they transform themselves, maybe talk a little bit how the why can underpin that exercise.
Well, depends what you mean by transformation. Transformations are moving from one state to another, and all organizations will go through various transformations as they mature. Some of them are within their control, and some of them are just sort of the byproducts of success. So, for example, as an organization gets bigger, bureaucracy is necessary because no longer can we rely on one person to do all the hiring and make all the decisions. We have to now trust and rely on each other. This presents some inherent problems. One of the inherent problems is we don't know the motivations that people are making their decisions. Is it to advance themselves? Is it to advance the organization? Or is it something else? We don't really know. And so this is really the benefit of the why. When an organization is small, that founder CEO is able to trust their gut, where the why is contained. But as I said before, it's not scalable. And so as it grows, it becomes necessary for the why to be put into clear terms. It's valuable small as well, but it's especially valuable as the organization grows, because the clearer those terms, the more it serves as a filter and a lighthouse. So a lighthouse for others who believe what you believe to be attracted to you. This is both the case for employees and for customers or clients. And when we fill the halls with people who believe what we believe, the decision making becomes much easier. It's as if everyone is operating off the same gut. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the purpose of the why, is to attract people and bring people in. But this presents another problem, which, to your point, is where Leaders Eat Last picks up where Start With Why left off. Which is, now that you've attracted all the people, now what?
Right.
How do you create trust and cooperation? And what I learned was sort of remarkable. I spent time with all kinds of different organizations, and the most extreme of which would be the military. And the reason I say extreme is because they actually deal in matters of life and death. Concepts like trust and cooperation aren't luxuries or nice ideas; they're absolute necessities. Mm-hmm. So the lessons are that much more visible. It's not that they're different because they work in life and death environments. It's that the lessons are more exaggerated. And this is where I learned the concepts that I wrote about in Leaders Eat Last on how to create organizations that trust and cooperation are the normal. And just think about that for 1 second. There are people in the military who are willing to risk their lives for people they don't even like. We work in organizations where we don't even like to give up credit for things. So it's really sort of quite fascinating to me.
So would you say then that understanding the why and getting some consensus around the why will help you mitigate overt and covert resistance to change, to transformation?
What the why does is it provides context for change. So, for example, my why and our organization's why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so together we can change our world, right? Now, as we've had some success with spreading that message, inherently there are more and more difficult decisions we have to make. For example, we have it's a very good problem to have, but we now have the challenge of, what if you get an offer of 2 different things on the same day? Which one do you say yes to? Now, the normal business practice would be you say yes to the one that pays you more money, right?
Right.
We can't do that because we don't. That's not the filter. Because the filter is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. And
right.
So there's a new set of standards that we apply, because it's all about scale. So things that we may have said yes to 3 years ago, we've transformed the way we make decisions that we would never say yes to them now, and the team is perfectly comfortable with that. With the things that in other words, we can't look, well, historically we used to do that, let's do it again. No, we've transformed because of the way that we've grown and the way the message is being received, so we make decisions differently, but the context is still exactly the same. The reason why we chose X 3 years ago is the same reason why we choose Y now.
Makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So let me ask you, culture and strategy are 2 huge buzzwords that corporations glom on to these days, and you're laughing. I see you're laughing there. So, and yet when you talk to CEOs, and we talk to many of them, and these are bright, intelligent, vibrant, A-type personalities,
sure.
have a clear vision, and you talk to them about strategy, and you say, so how much time do you spend on strategy? And they say, oh, once a week or twice a week or a daily or whatever their answer is, and they acknowledge that culture is important.
Yeah.
But when it comes to spending time on it, they spend very little time.
Yeah.
And so can you talk to me about that sort of disconnect between culture and strategy, and again, how your belief system affects that?
My belief system is not so much a belief system, it's just a matter of clear definitions, right? I think everybody understands the value of culture, but I don't think anybody, let me rephrase it, I think many people misunderstand what it is.
Okay.
Culture is not the color you paint the walls. Culture is not how many offsites you have, and whether you're a casual office or a formal office. That's not culture. Culture is the personality of a group of people. So I know what your personality is as an individual, right? I know that you are an altruist. I know that you believe in giving. I know that you believe in sacrifice. And I know what kind of person you are. And the kind of person you are will manifest in different ways. It'll manifest in the decisions you make, the way you dress, the friends you keep company with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if any of those things are inconsistent with what I expect your personality to be, I would scratch my head and say that doesn't make sense, right? So, for example, if I see you as an altruist, and then I see you hanging out with, corporate raiders, I'd scratch my head and say, there's something different going on here. There's something wrong, right?
A disconnect.
Right. So we're clear on what a personality is and how we judge each other, and that we look for consistency in our expectations of who the person is and the activities and decisions they make, right? The activities they engage in, the decisions they make. Well, culture is the same thing amplified to a group. A culture of an organization is the personality of that group. And that culture is clear when we hire people with the similar beliefs and values that we have. That doesn't mean we don't hire diverse populations. You hire very diverse populations, right? Because they bring different perspectives. But fundamentally, if you hire a group of people who believe, let's say in your personality, in altruism, they can come from any walk of life.
Sure.
Right? And so we will say that the culture is clear because the group of people that have come to that organization share the same values and beliefs.
Right.
It has a strong culture.
Yeah.
I just have a question there, because often in a large corporation, there are the Y-gen executives.
Yep.
And then there are the other generational executives that come from different mindsets in different cultures, so to speak. Sure. So is it possible to have one culture when really you have such a spectrum of executives in terms of interests and values?
Culture doesn't matter what style or perspectives are included, right? So a younger generation will bring a new way to advance the culture that we all believe in. So, for example, Canada has a culture. We know what somebody who is Canadian kind of looks like, and they're different than Americans, right? In other words, there's a unifying component. Now, within those cultures or subcultures, you have West Coast and East Coast. You have Toronto and Vancouver that are different, but they're all Canadian, right? So, and they're all proud to be Canadian. And so there is a unifying thing that is Canada or Canadian. Mm-hmm. So the Disney Corporation has senior executives and junior executives. It has Gen Ys and it has baby boomers. And yet they all fundamentally believe in the reason why Disney was founded, which is to produce magic. You know, is to provide this family-oriented experience, this magical experience. They all buy into it. Now they all have different perspectives and different ways to do it, and that's good. That's good debate. We like debate in the execution of the common cause. The problem is that there's a weak culture. The debate happens in the common cause. What is it? What should we stand for? That's not helpful.
Yeah. Simon, you often invoke Apple as a terrific company to understand how things get done, and a company that clearly understands the why. Talk about how they, I was privileged to work there 11 years. They certainly have a unifying culture.
Correct, and there's different perspectives, and there's different styles, and there's different personalities, and those things don't detract from the culture.
No.
Yeah.
John, did you? Sorry, I think I cut you off there. Did you want to?
No, I was just going to say that's the first time that I've had explained to me clearly how you can have a singular culture even though you have multiple generations.
Sure, not a problem.
That there is this tie-in, so you have heterogeneity at the same time you have a unifying theme or a unifying cause, and I think that really helps clarify how you look at culture and understand how new generation fits with old generation.
Right, exactly. And what's very important is that culture is not, though it may form organically, it must be managed.
Yeah.
And this is the fundamental job of leadership, which is the job of leadership is to protect the people, protect the organization, and ensure the persistence of the culture. The job of the people inside the organization is to consider each other and to worry about the numbers.
And I think that's gonna segue nicely into Leaders Eat Last,
Yeah.
Simon, which I'd like to follow up on. But before I do that, from your perspective, and you've helped a lot of individuals and companies,
Yeah.
each gain a perspective, if you will. What's been the biggest learning or the biggest surprise you as you've seen companies struggle to transform themselves by way of your definition, and why do so many fail to actually transform successfully?
Yeah. So biggest struggle and biggest surprise. So biggest struggle is courage. Leadership is a courageous activity that often means doing the right thing at the expense of what's right for me. Those two are not always, they don't always go together, right? So when organizations, when the leadership of an organization is quicker to take cues from Wall Street analysts who are, let's be clear, disinterested external constituents, right? When you take your cues from outsiders, that demonstrates to me a lack of courage. It's a lack of leadership courage, because leadership courage would be ignoring the short-term ambitions of an external audience to do what is right for the organization for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
That takes courage to stand up to that. That's hard. So that would be the continued struggle, which is to promote the courage of leadership. And ultimately,
Hart Hellman, I think I'm looking at the time here. I think we should be looking at a wrap-up question. and then we can go to some private discussion. So I'm always thinking about our viewers who are watching this live stream, and also we're going to be rebroadcasting this. So, Hart, have you got a last burning question?
Yeah, I do. I have to listen at the risk of showing this book off, which I'm a big fan of. Like I said, I hope you don't mind, Simon, but I love this book. It was absolutely fabulous. This is Leaders Eat Last. I recommend that everybody who's listening to this go out and grab a copy. It is spectacular.
Thank you very much.
Let me give you my last question that will actually tie this together. Leaders Eat Last talk about putting the welfare, as you've talked about, tangentially, putting the welfare of others ahead of your own. You talked about the military model, how you do it for people you don't even know, and leaders would serve their companies and themselves, ironically, better if they put others ahead. Can you maybe just tie that together with this notion of how that would benefit transformation and innovation in a company? And let's face it, if a company today doesn't transform due to internal or external pressures, they can go out of business pretty quickly. So this is pretty bread and butter and pretty fundamental to the life of the business.
Sure. So I believe in the evolutionary change of a transformation, not the revolutionary change of transformation, right? So revolution is sudden and often violent. So bringing in, having a big reorg is an attempt to transform suddenly and aggressively. And usually what we do is we have lots of PowerPoint presentations on the value of this. Everybody gets scared. Everybody puts up their defenses, and the reorg happens, and most of the time they're not successful. And that's not because the idea wasn't well-founded. It's because there's resistance inside the organization because it's sudden and shocking. I believe in the evolutionary form of transformation, where we clearly articulate the world we're trying to build, and we say, how are we going to get there? And we allow people inside the organization to offer ideas themselves to move slowly, one brick at a time. And so instead of applying a bulldozer to move the wall, you literally move the wall one brick at a time, to the point where it's much more stable. It allows for some errors in the short term. It's okay if the early bricks are a little bit crooked. But most importantly, it gets buy-in from everybody because it demonstrates that no one's going to get hurt. And even if the sudden reorg is a good idea in theory, it doesn't matter because it's people's fear that will do more destruction, or uncertainty, or mistrust, or paranoia. And so when you give people a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing in the global sense, the greater cause, and that there's a necessity for transformation in order to persist, in order to achieve that goal, the opportunities to make decisions that are slightly different than they used to be are much easier, and you get much more buy-in.
Makes sense to me.
Well, Hart Hillman, CEO of the Big Win Group, and globally recognized author Simon Sinek, thank you for joining TechNOW this afternoon. And tune in next week for yet another Leadership Series interviews. Thank you again for this afternoon.
Thank you, John.